Eżis semmija ta' Radju Marija nilqakom għal programm ieħor Naturali, programm imtella minn Radju Marija b'kollaborazzjoni ma' BirdLife Malta fuq kitba ta' Jason Aloisio. U passoltu nibdew il-programm tagħna bl-intervista u l-intervista tal-lum se tlaqana ma' riċerkatur Andre Raine li wara li qatta xi snin jaħdem f'Malta kompla l-ħidma tiegħu fil-gżejjer tal-Hawaii fejn qed jaħdem fi proġett immirat li jsalva 3 speċi ta' għasafar tal-baħar mill-qerda. Permezz tal-mistoqsijiet li għamillu Jason Aloisio huwa se jagħtina aktar tarif dwar dan il-proġett.
Andre, fi żmien li inti qattajt taħdem f'Malta, kontajt spinta lill-istudju tal-għasafar tal-baħar u sintendi l-konservazzjoni tagħhom. Issa ilek għal numru ta' snin taħdem fil-Hawaii fuq proġett simili ta' konservazzjoni ta' għasafar tal-baħar. X'inhi l-ħidma li qiegħed tagħmel f'dawn il-gżejjer?
So, as I said, I'm working on the island of Kauai, and my project is the Kauai Endangered Seabird Recovery Project, which I'm the project coordinator. We focus on the 3 endangered seabirds on the island. The first one is the Newell shearwater. This is a puffinus shearwater, which is closely related to the yellow-winged shearwater of Malta. Quite a similar species, although much more darker on top and whiter below. And we have 90% of the world population on Kauai, so the island's very important for that species. The second species we have is the Hawaiian petrel. It's another Hawaiian endemic, although it's also found on some of the other islands of Hawaii. And we have internationally important populations of that species. Recent work has actually discovered that the subpopulations that live on Kauai and the other islands are different from each other, and they have different breeding seasons and different vocalizations. So it's very important to protect the different island populations of that species in particular. And then the third species we have is the band-rump storm petrel, which is a little storm petrel species, which is found, not very much is known about it. In fact, there is currently no known breeding record of the species on the island in terms of finding an actual active burrow. Although we do know that the species nests on the high cliffs of the island. They're just in really inaccessible areas. So it's a really tricky species to study. It's a very enigmatic little seabird. And my project focuses on these species and looks firstly at their population trends, so trying to understand how the populations are faring on the island as a whole. They're not doing very well at all, unfortunately. And then we assess all the different threats that face these species and try to understand what these threats are and how we can reverse them. And then we work with land managers and various agencies within Hawaii to protect them in an effort to reverse the declines. And we have, it's a pretty large project now. We have 14 staff. Some of them are permanent staff members and others are seasonals. And we work through the seabird season, which here is a little different from Malta. Our seabird season starts in April and runs all the way through to December. So quite a lot of time spent in the field working with these birds.
Min fejn ġej it-teddit li qegħdin jiffaċċjaw dawn l-għasafar tal-baħar?
The threats facing these birds are similar to threats that seabirds around the world face. So a lot of the threats that we have here are similar to ones, for example, that the yellow-winged shearwater and the Cory's or Scopoli shearwater now face in Malta. And then some of them are a little different. So outlining the threats, we have introduced predators as a major one. Here in Kauai, the birds are threatened by cats, feral cats, which are basically all over the island. Rats, in particular black rats, which eat the chicks and the eggs. Feral pigs, which again are all over the island, and they will dig up the burrows and eat the adults, the chicks, the eggs, anything that's inside. And then also the barn owl, which was introduced to the island to control rats. It's a usual story where humans introduce one species and then introduce something else to try to control them and just find that actually they've made the problem even worse. In this case, the barn owls, although they do eat the rats, also eat all of our endangered seabirds. So we have these various predators, introduced predators, which impact heavily on the birds up in the mountains. And then the birds are basically in the interior of the island, so they nest in these high upper montane areas in these lush forests. And to get to the forest, they fly from the sea every night during the breeding season up to their colonies, and they have to pass through a sort of network of power lines which encircle the island. and the birds collide with them because they can't see them in the dark. And so power line collisions are a really big issue. And then, like in Malta, light attraction is a big issue. So the seabirds, when they fledge or when they leave the nest for the first time, they start heading out to sea, and they're basically using the moon and the stars as part of their navigation. And on dark nights, when the moon is low, they get disorientated by the lights of the cities, and they'll circle these lights, and then they'll end up exhausted and on the ground. And once they're on the ground, they'll get eaten by cats and dogs, they'll get run over by cars, or they'll just crawl away and hide somewhere, and they eventually dehydrate or starve. Fallout's a really a phenomenon which affects seabirds all over the place, and it's something which I know BirdLife Malta has spent a lot of time asking people to look out for birds seabirds like yelkowins during the fledging season, to try to find them and collect them if they found they've fallen out into the cities. And it's really good to be able to collect these birds and release them on the off the cliffs so that they actually have a chance to survive out at sea. And then other threats on the island, there's the impact of invasive plants. We have some pretty habitat-changing species out here, things like strawberry guava and kahili ginger, which are introduced to the islands, and they quickly swamp the understory of the forest in which these birds breed. And then the birds can't dig their burrows because they're burrow nesters. They dig little holes in the ground, and they lose their breeding habitat because of these plants. And these are the threats that happen to the birds on land, on their colonies on land. But then, they are seabirds. They spend a lot of time at sea, and so there's a whole range of threats out at sea, which we know very little about, but we can assume that they have another impact on the birds. And these are things like overfishing, so the loss of food sources out at sea, bycatch, being caught on fishing lines, which affects a number of seabirds, particularly albatross, but also shearwaters. Like in the Mediterranean, the Balearic shearwater is a species that's heavily impacted by overfishing, and yelkowins and scopoli shearwaters are also impacted to some degree by overfishing. Climate change, so the changing of temperatures, sea temperatures, can have these huge impacts on prey populations. And then things like plastic ingestion, so the birds will ingest plastic out at sea, and this can have serious impacts upon them. So the birds face a whole range of different threats, and it's because of this that they're not doing well. We've just recently looked at radar data over a 20-year period and found that the Newell shearwater, its population, the radar targets that we've been studying over 20 years, have declined by 94%. And the Hawaiian petrels have declined by about 80%, so they're doing really badly. And they're now predominantly concentrated in the northwest of the island, where they're as far away from human habitation as they can get. And that is probably the reasons why they're now in these areas and pretty much nowhere else. A lot of the coastal colonies have disappeared, and they're now just sort of concentrated in this core northwest part of the island, which is a very inaccessible part of the island, very steep and rugged terrain, very challenging to work in. And it's because of that terrain that the birds are able to still survive in these areas in small numbers.
Issa, nixtieqek tispjegalna x'qiegħed jagħmel il-proġett biex isolvi jew tal-anqas itaffi dawn il-problemi.
So with this vast array of threats that these birds are facing, it could seem kind of overwhelming at times, but there are a whole range of different things that we can do, and ways that we are trying to address these threats with a variety of different partners. So, for example, dealing with invasive predators. We now have 6 or 7 of the colonies where we have invasive predator control. So we partnered up with the Upper Limahuli Preserve in the northwest of the island, which is managed by the National Tropical Botanical Gardens. And it's an area that's protected with an ungulate-proof fence, so there's no pigs inside. And then they have active introduced predator control operations going on inside this area to protect the birds from the predators. And likewise, we have multiple sites in the adjacent Hononapali Natural Area Reserve, where the Natural Area Reserve staff, again, are dealing with predators through an intensive predator control project. So trying to protect the birds up in the mountains with predator control is one way of dealing with these land-based threats. Another is a translocation project that we're working on with a whole range of different partners at the moment. This is a project where we have a predator-proof fence erected on the coast at the Kilauea Point National Wildlife Refuge. It's a site called Nehoku. And with a whole range of different partners like Pacific Rim Conservation, the Kilauea Refuge, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, American Bird Conservancy, and others, we're working to translocate both Hawaiian petrels and Newell shearwaters from the mountains to this predator-proof colony. And the idea here is that we take the birds as chicks before they've emerged from their burrows, and we take them down to the coast out of the mountains, and then they're raised for the next few weeks until they fledge. And the idea is that once they fledge and they head out to sea, when they come back in the future, they should have imprinted on that colony, the new colony, and create this new coastal colony. So that translocation project is really exciting. To deal with the threats of power line collision, we work closely with the local utility company. Power line collisions are a big threat because the birds can't see the power lines. And so what we've been doing with the power line company is firstly trying to understand how bad the situation is, how many birds are hitting the power lines each year. And then trying to understand where the very worst areas on the island are for these power line collisions. The bad news is there's lots of collisions. The good news is that they are very much focused on key areas. And so therefore we can look at these key areas and see how we can control, how we can deal with the collisions in these areas. So with the power line company, they have undergrounded some of the problem lines. They've lowered some of the lines. They're looking at rerouting some of the lines. And particularly excitingly, we're working on developing a laser fence to run in front of some of these problem lines. And the idea there is that we have in-house staff who are creating this laser system, and the lasers fire across the power lines at night, and they create this visible laser fence. And then as the birds are flying up in the darkness, rather than not seeing the lines, they see these lasers crossing the power lines, and then the idea is that they'll divert up and over them and not hit the lines. So that's really exciting. It's using these new technologies, firstly to understand the problem, and then secondly, figuring out how to address the problem. And there are a lot of people on the island who are working hard to protect the birds. And it's not just the birds, of course, because the birds rely on these pristine habitats up in the mountains, and they require fairly large areas in which to have their colonies. So by protecting the birds, we protect these large swaths of habitat. And these areas are really important watersheds for the island. There are these upper montane areas, and they're very wet. There's a lot of, there's some of the wettest areas on Earth, in fact. And so all the water that lands in these watersheds then runs down, and they end up down in the coast, and provide our own water sources. So protecting the birds really does have this sort of overall habitat-wide level protection, which in turn helps us, those of us who rely on the water coming down from the mountains for our own needs. So, it's a very holistic approach to dealing with the conservation of these species.
Fl-aħħar nett, Andre, x'tama tħoss li hemm mal-futur, speċjalment issa li l-proġett qiegħed jaħdem bis-sħiħ għall-konservazzjoni ta' dawn l-ispeċi?
I've been the project coordinator for the Kauai Endangered Seabird Project for 6 years now, and I've really enjoyed this job. I'm still really enjoying it. It's a very challenging job because the species are hard to work with. They're nocturnal seabirds. They only come in at night. They, as I said, live in the most remote parts of the island. So these are really rugged mountains, really challenging terrain to work in. And, they're endangered. So they have faced this whole raft of threats, which I've already talked about. So it's a challenge, but it's also, a very rewarding experience, because over these years, we've figured out what the problems are. We've found where all the birds are. We know their core areas. We have a lot of willing partners who are able to help initiate some of the management actions that are needed to reverse the declines. And so I think that we're at a turning point now where we have the information we need to help conserve these endangered birds. And we have the tools available in which to do so. And now is the time where if we act now, it'll be in time to save the species. They don't have long time left if we don't do anything. If we sit there and do nothing, then eventually, unfortunately, they will probably become extinct over time. But we know the problems, we know where the birds are, we have the tools available in which to deal with the threats. And so it's an exciting time to be working with conservation of endangered seabirds in the islands of Hawaii, and particularly Kauai. And I'm optimistic for the future. I think I think these birds can persist over time. It's going to require a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of funding, and it will require a lot of people to initiate the management actions that are needed. But ultimately, if we can achieve this, then our children and our children's children will still be able to go up into the mountains and hear the haunting cries of these seabirds. And, it's a pretty magical experience to sit up there on these mountainsides in the darkness, in the mist and the fog, listening to these birds calling in the distance, as they have for a very, very long time. And I hope they persist long, long into the future.
Inkomplu bil-programm tagħna u nitkellmu issa dwar il-faqqih. Il-faqqih hi l-kelma Maltija għal mushrooms li fil-kampanja tagħna narawhom l-aktar fil-ħarifa. Kultant jitfaċċaw ukoll f'xi rokna womda tad-dar tagħna. Il-feature li bih se nagħlqu l-programm miktub minn Edwin Lanfranco se jtina aktar tarif dwar il-ħajja tal-faqqih.
Il-ħlejjaq ġeneralment naqsmuhom f'annimali u pjanti. Naturalment, dawk li huma imwaħħlin u ġol daqstant ma jistgħux jiċċaqalqu minn post għal ieħor ngħidulhom pjanti. Iżda dan mhux dejjem daqshekk sempliċi. Ngħidu aħna, il-pjanti tipiċi huma fotosintetiċi, jiġifieri kapaċi jaħsnu l-enerġija tad-dawl permezz tal-klorofilla, li hija l-kimika li tagħti lil pjanti l-kulur aħdar, sabiex imbagħad jibnu s-sustanzi tagħhom. Iżda jeżistu dawk il-pjanti magħrufa bħala fungi li m'għandhomx klorofilla u għaldaqstant biex jgħixu jiddependu minn sustanzi prodotti minn ħlejjaq oħra. Dan jagħmluh billi jużaw sustanzi minn ħlejjaq mejtin. Jużaw ukoll skart organiku jew inkella jgħixu ħajja ta' parassita. Dawn tal-aħħar jikbru fuq il-ħlejjaq ħajjin u jassorbu s-sustanzi minnhom. Xi botaniċi huma tal-fehma li l-fungi għandna nifirduhom mill-pjanti vera u mill-annimali. Hemm varjetà kbira ta' fungi li jinkludu ħlejjaq bħal moffa, parassiti ta' pjanti bħal muwa s-sadit, in-nora u l-mess, kif ukoll il-faqqih jew umbrellel, bl-Ingliż magħrufin bħala toadstools. Filwaqt li l-parti l-kbira tagħhom il-fungi għandhom frott mikroskopiku jew kważi mikroskopiku, il-faqqih għandu frott kbir u mlaħħam. Fil-fatt, il-faqqih li naraw huwa biss il-frott. Il-parti li tassorbi u tmexxi s-sustanzi għandha għamla ta' ħafna ħjut, il-miċelju, mitfunin ġewwa l-materjal li l-faqqih ikun qed jikber fuqu. Ħafna faqqieħu marbut ma' siġar u pjanti oħra partikolari, għaqda intima li minna jibbenefikaw it-tnejn, speċjalment billi jiksbu s-sustanzi meħtieġa. Din ix-xorta ta' assoċjazzjoni hija magħrufa bħala mikorrizza. Ħafna jistaqsu li ma' huma l-faqqih li jista' jittiekel u dak li hu venenuż. Ġili nisimgħu b'ħafna metodi kif wieħed jista' jinduna jekk il-faqqih ikunx venenuż jew le. Iżda dawn huma kollha ħrejjef u ħrejjef perikolużi. L-uniku mod kif wieħed jista' jkun jaf li mu tajjeb għall-ikel u li ma mhux huwa li jkun jaf mill-qrib li speċi jiltaqa' magħhom. Għaldaqstant, ħadd m'għandu jiġbor il-faqqih għall-ikel jekk ma jkunx jaf sewwa l-ispeċi tiegħu. Fil-Gżejjer Maltin għandna qatt ġmielu ta' faqqih. Għadna ma nafux eżatt kemm il-speċi hawn għax ftit għadu sar studju fuqhom, iżda nafu b'xi 200 speċi li għandna l-isem sħiħ tagħhom. Madankollu hawn xi 200 oħra magħrufa u li għadhom mhumiex identifikati għal kollox. Minkejja li hawn ħafna speċi, ftit minnhom biss jikbru fi kwantità kbira minħabba li l-faqqih jiddependi sew mill-lumdu. In-nixfa ta' artna ma tippermettilux li jikber fi kwantitajiet kbar. Il-maġġoranza tal-faqqih li jolqot lajn għandu l-għamla tipika ta' kappell fuq zokk. Min taħt, il-kappell kollu ħafna folji imsejħa lamelli li huma miksija bi spori mikroskopiċi li jintużaw għat kattir. Fost il-faqqih ta' din l-għamla spiss niltaqgħu mal-faqqih tal-ġonna li huwa bajdani b'kappell li ġiri jilħaq xi 15 cm diametru bl-amelli roża u bi speċi ta' kikra taħt it-zokk. Dan mhux velenus iżda jiġbaħ ferm lil wieħed mill-iżjed tipi ta' faqqieħ velenużi, l-amanita velenuża, li għandu bħal ċirku madwar it-zokk. Hemm ukoll l-amanita tajba li jiġbaħhom ukoll. B'hekk naraw il-bżonn ta' attenzjoni għax faqqieħ jixxiebaħ jista' jkun jew velenus jew mhux. Il-faqqieħ vjola jinsab l-iżjed fejn hemm ħafna siġar u miegħu spiss insibu l-faqqieħ abjad li hu pjuttost velenus. Il-faqqieħ tad-demm għandu kulur jagħti fir-roża u jekk jinbarax joħroġ minnu likwidu aħmar bħad-demm. Din l-ispeċi tikber biss fejn hemm iċ-ċistu abjad li hu arbuxxell rari. Il-maġġoranza tal-faqqieħ insibuh fil-ħarifa. Fir-rebbija, fost il-ħaxix jikber il-faqqieħ tal-linka b'kappell tawwali li wara li jerħi l-ispori jibda jdub f'likwidu iswed. Xi faqqieħ għandu pori minn flok lamelli. Bħala eżempju hemm il-faqqieħ ta' żnuber li hu fungu kbir ta' kulur kannella safrani u l-faqqieħ tal-ballut b'kulur sabiħ ħamrani skur u kappell bellusi li jgħixu marbutin faqda mikrorizka ma' żnuber u mal-ballut rispettivament. Il-faqqieħ tal-ferla li jikber fuq l-erq tal-ferla wara li din tkun mietet għandu t-zokk fil-ġemp. Dan il-fungu bajdani jista' jkun kbir ġmielu u dari kien jinġabar fi kwantità għal bejħ. Issa naqas ġmielu minkejja li l-ferla għadha komuni, jista' jagħti il-każ li dan huwa sinjal li l-Gżejjer Maltin qed isiru aktar nixfa. Fuq frijaj ħajjin jew mejtin tas-siġar spiss jikber faqqieħ mingħajr zokk u bil-pori. Ħafna minn dan qisu xkaffa ħirġa mis-siġar u għalhekk bl-Ingliż jgħidulu bracket fungi. Il-maġġoranza ta' dan għandu konsistenza pjuttost qiebsa qisha sufra bħal huma l-ispeċi ta' Fellinus u Trametes li bil-Malti ngħidulhom lixka. Oħrajn huma pjuttost rotop u mlaħmin bħal faqqieħ tal-ħarrub li huwa isfar. Insibu wkoll faqqieħ ta' ħafna għamliet strambi bħal faqqieħ tal-gaġġa li jikber fix-xari u li qisu gaġġa ħamra iddellek ħirġa minn basket abjad. Insibu wkoll il-faħxija li jikber fil-ġonna. Dawn iż-żewġ speċi nqdew bid-dubbin sabiex ixerdu l-ispori tagħhom. Il-fungu magħruf bħala skleroderma għandu għamla ta' patata. Din tkun mimlija kollha spori qishom trab li jiġi meħlus meta jinfetaq il-fungu. Fl-aħħar nett insemmu grupp sħiħ ta' fungi li għandhom għamla ta' skutella u li għaldaqstant jistgħu jissejħu skutella tal-art. Fil-ġonna kultant tikber speċi ta' morkella faqqieħ kbir qisu sponża ta' walija fuq zokk koħxon iżda vojt minn ġewwa. Dawn huma biss xi ftit mill-għamliet u l-ispeċi ta' faqqieħ li għandna fil-Gżejjer Maltin. Iżda huma biżżejjed biex iżidu l-interess fil-wirt naturali ta' pajjiżna.
U b'dak it-tarif wasalna fit-tmiem ta' programm ieħor Naturali. Nfakkarkom li dan il-programm jixxandar fuq Radju Marija kull nhar ta' ġimgħa fl-4 ta' war nofsinhar, jiġi mtenni nhar ta' tlieta fl-4 u nofs ta' filgħodu. Dejjem b'kollaborazzjoni ma' BirdLife Malta fuq kitba ta' Jason Aloisio. Jiena Rosalba nirringrazzjakom u nagħmel appuntament magħkom għal programm ieħor bħal dan Naturali bħallum ġimgħa.